Hey everyone, I hope you're taking it easy and your day has been great thus far. For this video, we'll be going through a unboxing and review of Blackarachnia. And this version of Blackarachnia is part of the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy. It's part of the Kingdom part of the trilogy. And as a figure, this was released back in 2021. So heading back into the Beast Wars type of content, particularly with the Predacons, given that they seem to be some enjoyable characters. Here we have Blackarachnia. So I did mention when I did the Tarantulas unboxing that I did want to do a bit of a circle back to Blackarachnia. So here we have Blackarachnia per the War for Cybertron Trilogy Kingdom packaging. So no, she is not going to be a legacy figure, but despite that, pretty much all the characters in the War for Cybertron stuff, at least from the Beast War side of things, were pretty much very heavy callbacks to their original Beast Wars incarnations. So there you go. She might as well be a pseudo legacy figure. So, front of the box, in this particular time in 2021, plastic was still a thing. But we do still have Blackarachnia inside the box in her robot mode. In terms of the box art, so we do have Blackarachnia in her robot mode here, and there's just a nice little call out to her beast mode up in this little top section. And also notice there's some of the other Predacons there in the artwork as well, being Waspinator, Dinobot, and Scorponok. And in the far distance there is the Nemesis. Now this version of Blackarachnia is also a Deluxe class, so I'm not expecting her to take too much time, but we'll see how things go. So that's the front and the, well, it's a side. And in terms of the other side, it's just the War for Cybertron trilogy artwork that had been running through, this one being a bit more focused on Kingdom. So we still have some of the Autobots, some of the Decepticons, although it's mainly Megatron and Galvatron at this point in time, and then the various Maximals and Predacons. In terms of the back of the box, so we have Blackarachnia in her robot mode, her spider mode, aka beast mode, and we're looking at about 20 steps of conversion. Now I suspect it will hopefully be similar transformation as Tarantulas. I guess it depends how much of a heavy redeco Tarantulas was from Blackarachnia. We'll find out soon enough. Well, I'll find out soon enough. People potentially already know about the differences and whatnot. So that is the box. So with that being looked at, I will crack open the box, and then we can have a look at Blackarachnia and her inclusions. And with Blackarachnia now out of her packaging, so it'll actually be different to not have to worry about a backdrop for a change. So in terms of what was included, a instruction manual, which is pretty much stock standard, the figure of Blackarachnia herself, and I will admit, I'm really digging the figure a fair bit. And in fact, I almost like more of the attributes of Blackarachnia than Tarantulas. One accessory, so her main weapon, and a little card, in which case this card is actually of the Ark. So, how are we going to do this? Well, since this is going to be equivalent to a, well, not a backing board, but here's the little included card of the Ark. Now I can't remember if it was this or something else that had some interesting little gimmicky type things about it. It has been a while since the line was released. So that's the back of it and the front. That's pretty cool. ironically enough, I do still actually see some Kingdom stuff still floating around retail shelves, so it's not too bad. So that's the included card, quite nice. So that's the arc. Weapon, we'll come back to the accessory. Blackarachnia, we'll come back to you. Manual. So here we have the manual for Blackarachnia. It's going to be one of those weird bigger manuals, which I don't know why it needs to be that big, but oh well. So, in terms of the manual, so we do have the step as to how to attach her weapon to her hand, and I suspect it will be attachable in both her left and right hand. In terms of the transformation, so it does feel a touch different from Tarantulas, but in saying that, she also does have a different body type to Tarantulas. So we start with the back of the torso going down, flipping a few things around, tucking bits of her upper body in and folding it over. Although to be honest, some of it actually does look a bit like Tarantulas. It's just different in the sense how it's been organized, because I suspect her legs will somehow fold into her abdomen. I never did biology, so I'm not that great on spider parts. In terms of the back of the instructions, it's, to be honest, it actually does feel like it's just the early version of Tarantulas, which is okay. So I think it actually might not be too bad. So that's basically the 20 steps to get her into her beast mode. And she does have a bit of a gimmick where her weapon can, I won't say tuck in, but it can just be plugged into her underside. Not too bad. Not sure how often I'll do it, but it's obviously a good way of storing weapons. So that was the manual, so not too bad, 20 steps. So there's Blackarachnia. In terms of your accessory, so very reminiscent of your primary weapon from Beast Wars, and I do like how it actually has been given a two-tone color as opposed to being one flat color. So it actually does look like it's two pieces of plastic, but in truth it's probably this one gold one with the bronze on the back. In terms of attaching it, so that's attaching it into her right hand, and then should attach also into the left. So that's not too bad at all. It does attach in very nicely, very cleanly, and is actually held quite well. To be honest, it actually does feel quite realistic to the animation. There you go. So that is her weapon accessory being held. We'll come back to this when we visit her beast mode. Now, Blackarachnia. So, having a look at the figure before we get into too much articulation and everything in between. So that's Blackarachnia from the front, from the side, the back, the other side, bit of a angled shot, and a bit of a close-up of at least her head and upper torso and some of her arms. So I would dare say the toy is probably the best representation of Blackarachnia that I have seen, at least from the official Takara Tomy Hasbro. I think there's been some third-party ones that aren't too bad, but definitely from a official product perspective, it's definitely leaps and bounds better than her original Beast Wars toy. And yeah, I'd say this is probably a very good representation. Colors are fairly spot on. I'm sure there's probably some colors missing, but overall the color aesthetic is definitely there. I do like the detailing on the head, the chest, and the spider eyes, which technically aren't the spider eyes, but articulation. now that we've talked about colours and had a quick look at Blackarachnia. So head will do a full 360, not unsurprising. It will also go down and up as well. So it does have a good amount of movement on that neck joint. So in terms of posing her head, you definitely will have options. In terms of the arms, so the arm can go all the way out that way. It can do a full 360 in that shoulder socket. Come back down. It will also go all the way, well, given that can do a 360, it can naturally go all the way to the front, the back, especially with that hinge. I mean, you can even do the arm backwards. So in terms of movement in that shoulder is a very good amount. There will be, can actually do it within here. So you can rotate at the top of the arm through that nice little join there. You'll also have that lower forearm 360 as well, and the hand can pretty much go that way all the way back. So in terms of movement in the hands and arms, it is very, very cool. The spider legs, we'll get to it more in the beast mode, but they do tuck away very nicely. In fact, I actually prefer the more slender look of the spider legs for Blackarachnia in her robot mode than I do Tarantulas. So arms covered, head covered. I'll just do the arms out that way for a bit. There won't be any movement in the waist, unfortunately, so if you're going to do any posing with her, you will have to focus more so using her legs to try to reposition and suggest direction. But between the arm movement and the movement in the head, it may not be too difficult. Now, as for the legs, so they can go all the way out, so Blackarachnia is capable of doing the full splits. Just bring those legs down. Legs can go. Now, interestingly enough, they won't go all the way far forward. They'll definitely go all the way back, but definitely not all the way far forward. Probably only up to about 45 degrees, mainly because of the waist bit here and the upper legs, sadly, colliding with it. So definitely good for moving to the back, moving to the side, moving to the front, not as good. Now in terms of the upper leg, there will be, I guess if I do that way, in fact there is full 360 at the actual hip joint itself. So there you go, guess that makes up for some of that. The upper leg will have 360 as well, which is very nice. In terms of the knee, so the knee will only have the one point, but that's how far back it can go. It's unfortunate the leg doesn't go all the way out front, but yeah, it's definitely not too bad for bringing the leg back. And I dare say some of Blackarachnia's iconic close combat style can also be reproduced in the figure. Just bear in mind you won't be able to do a full forward kick. But the knee isn't too bad. But it's just your usual knee bend there. Definitely nothing side to side. In terms of the feet, they'll be forward. Well, more so forward, but I think that's probably an artifact of the transformation process. And you do have a little bit of lefting and righting at the actual ankle joint itself, which is pretty good. It's not a ball socket, unfortunately, so don't expect to be rotating it. So you'll just have to make do with moving left to right. So that was the articulation within the Blackarachnia figure for her robot mode, and I would dare say I am highly impressed. The articulation is definitely good, and because she is a bit more of a slender transformer than Tarantulas, I think it does feel a lot better than it did for him. And yes, I do actually feel like you could actually reproduce a lot of her combat poses. Now, I will admit I am very surprised by the back kibble because it actually does fold away quite nicely. Now, I know the beast mode it won't look as good, but surprisingly it's actually quite neat and compact. I mean, it doesn't tab in at the back, but it does look quite compact within the robot mode, so that's actually quite a nice blessing. One of these days I will have to get the masterpiece version of Blackarachnia out just to compare this and that one. I'm sure it's been done plenty of times on YouTube, but it's always good to be able to do it with one's own hands and eyes. So that's a look at Blackarachnia from her robot mode. So what I will now do is, before we do anything, while she's in her robot mode, can she stand on her own 2 feet? Yes, she can. And before we get too carried away, I will do one last thing while she is still in her robot mode. So, Blackarachnia robot mode, Tarantulas robot mode. If Tarantulas was an actual scale up and redo of Blackarachnia, it's a decent change. I can definitely see some of the similarity points, but yes, it's definitely not a direct one-to-one change. But that is still the 2 Spider-Bots together, and yeah, I would say they look very on-screen accurate. There's some minor colours missing, but it's no biggie. But that is very cool. It's actually very nice to have the 2 spiders together. So that's the 2 of them basically in their robot mode side by side. I will have some pictures on my Instagram at some point in time with these 2 probably doing a few pictures together. There'll also be a short floating around as well, so no doubt I'll try and get a few seconds worth of Tarantulas and Blackarachnia together as well. So that's that now been done. As I was saying not too long ago, I will switch Blackarachnia to her beast mode, and we can have a better look at her beast mode, and maybe do a comparison against hers to Tarantulas and have some final thoughts. And with Blackarachnia now in her beast mode, it did take a little getting used to. So here is her beast mode in her very interesting stylized Black Widow. So I guess looking at a beast mode from the top down with the very iconic thorax, from the front, side, the back, the other side, the front from an angle, the underbelly, which by the way, there is the weapon nicely stored away, which isn't too bad. And yeah, so definitely not a bad looking beast mode, although I think I will have to probably deduct a few points in the sense that some of her proportions do look a little weird. And Tarantulas as a beast mode definitely did a much better style at hiding, especially the legs into the main thorax. Granted, the 2 are different in terms of body shape and things like that, so that in itself is something to contend with. But overall, I wouldn't say it's too bad. They've definitely done their best to try and neatly put everything into the thorax, which is still a nice attempt. So I'll definitely give them that. So in terms of colors, I mean, in her beast mode, she is more predominantly black with the nice little red markings per a widow. And then you will have some of the orangey yellowy tones coming through in the underbase, which I don't think they're supposed to, but once again, it's a figure. You can only do so much. In terms of the look, it is very nice that they have tried to put some of that texturing into the beast mode. So the thorax has some of that texturing, the legs have some of that texturing. In case I didn't do it before, there's a bit of a close-up of her head. So it's really not that bad. I mean, from a distance, and yes, she can actually support her own weight with her own legs, based on how I've organized them. So she can definitely stand up on her own 2 feet. Well, 8 feet, more to the point. Similar to Tarantulas, each of these legs is basically a ball socket and will move per the ball socket, so you do have some options there. And I will admit, they do seem a lot more sturdy than some of the legs on Tarantulas. That's pretty cool. The back of the Widow, it's doing what it can where it can. You can obviously tell that is where her waist has basically come up in part of her transformation. The underbelly actually isn't too bad, and if I just take the weapon out, which actually basically tabs in very nicely into parts of her forearm. So that's what her underbelly looks like without the weapon there. So it's actually relatively neat. In a way, it actually does look better having the weapon tabbed in. So it's just basically, if I remember correctly, these tabs here that the weapon will tab in. But yes, those hands basically just try to tab into the base of her feet. So that was that. We'll just tab that back in. Try and straighten some of that out. So that was that. So overall, her beast mode is definitely doing the best it can, but I think it's still done quite well at capturing her Black Widow aesthetic. I would probably say it's probably the weaker of the two, but I guess we'll mention a few things once we actually hit the actual final thoughts. So overall, beast mode transformation wasn't too bad. I think it was just similar to Tarantulas, just figuring out how those legs basically interconnect into the thorax, but I think I'll probably get better at it next time. So there is one spider. In fact, we'll get rid of the manual since we don't really, well, actually no, we will need it later on, but so one spider, 2 spiders. So Tarantulas and Blackarachnia, basically completing the spider duo. Now that I have the 2 of them side by side, you can definitely tell the huge difference between their spider aesthetic. Tarantulas being a tarantula, Blackarachnia being a Black Widow. So you can definitely feel the differences between the 2 alt modes. But it is very cool. So just the 2 of them like that. I guess if I hold them together. So yes, it's a very interesting comparison between the 2. And yes, there's Tarantulas' nice little yelling scared face in his thorax. Nice that Blackarachnia doesn't have that. So that's the 2 there. I'll have a card link back to my unboxing and review of Tarantulas if anyone is curious. So we'll just put those 2 there. Final thoughts. So just bringing back the manual. Blackarachnia's robot mode. very solid. Good articulation, with the exception of just moving some of the legs into a forward movement. But the articulation everywhere else is really cool. The knees, the arms has an abundance of articulation, good articulation in the head. It's a shame there's nothing in the actual waist area. Now that I've transformed it, I can see why. But that's not too bad. I think between the legs and the arms, you can pose her in such a way to infer some movement. I also really like how the spider legs just feel a lot more neater in her robot mode than what Tarantulas had with his legs in his robot mode. So very solid robot mode. Weapon accessory is spot on as well. Definitely really liked her bot mode. Much like I did Tarantulas, they both have very solid bot modes. Now in terms of her alt mode, her beast mode, overall it's not too bad. I can definitely see what they were trying to do. I think the parts that let it down, which for Tarantulas have actually been improved upon, and probably goes back to the fact they're two different types of spiders. You can tell they're trying to cobble a lot into her thorax. Granted, I can see why they're doing it, but by throwing in about 3/4 of her entire body into the thorax, it does start to show. It still tries to do what it can as best it can, but I'm just looking at from the side-on view, the thorax does feel a bit bulbous, which I think, to be honest, for a Black Widow probably isn't a bad thing. Going back to my point about biology. So it's definitely not the strongest part of the alt mode, but at the same time it's not too bad. I feel that does it better than her Beast Machines toy. The front isn't too bad, and it's unfortunate that unlike Tarantulas, she doesn't have her little moving mandible type feature as well, but that's okay. Overall it's not too bad. The detailing is very nice for the Beast mode. The legs are definitely a strong point and very much strong enough to still support the actual weight without her body actually contacting the ground. And I say that now it starts contacting the ground, but I'm also not balancing her very well. The weapon storage isn't too bad. Tarantulas did it better, but that's okay. It's probably a good thing that they didn't try and stick the weapon into her thorax. She's got enough happening there as it is. So overall, the beast mode isn't too bad, but I think it's the weaker of the two modes, just because of what they're trying to do. But Blackarachnia, I think, has always been one of those interesting toys where the bulk of her body is to try to move into the thorax and not have so much of it at the front. But I would definitely say it's still a very accurate representation of a Black Widow, especially when compared against Tarantulas being a tarantula. Colors are good, definitely no problems with that. I would definitely say overall beast mode, still a very solid beast mode, and compared to what she used to have back in the original Beast Wars, huge improvement. So there is that. If Blackarachnia was still readily available, I think you can still find her if you try hard enough. It's obviously not as readily available compared to last year. I would say I would very much recommend Blackarachnia. The toy is very solid. If you're a fan of the Beast Wars and or the Predacons, she will be a solid acquisition to the roster. And then even going back into the War for Cybertron trilogy, once again, still a very solid addition to the roster. And in fact, I will be going through more of the Beast Wars stuff from the Kingdom line, so yes, I'm probably going to be very hard pressed to not recommend anything, with the exception of Scorponok. Maybe Scorponok I feel was a bit hit and miss, but we'll get there when we get there. So definitely overall, very solid figure. I'm very happy with Blackarachnia. probably will end up keeping her in her robot mode, but we'll see how things go. Still got plenty of Predacons to unbox and review. And as I said earlier, I will have some various supplementary posts on Instagram, probably the YouTube community tab and things like that, between some extra pictures, short videos and things like that as well. So definitely keep an eye on that. Most likely at the point of this recording, it'll be a parallel release. Also nice to see, video recording is pretty much on par for a deluxe. So yes, that pretty much brings us to the end of the unboxing and review of Blackarachnia, with a bit of a cameo from Tarantulas. I'll definitely say overall, definitely very, very happy. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I did mention I'm doing more of the Predacons in the near future. If you have a preference, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I may have also picked up Transmetal to Megatron as well, so there could be some toing and froing. We'll see. Keep an eye on the community tab. I might put a few things up in that ongoing, just to try and plan some of that out. As I've been mentioning a few times already, there'll be some extra content on my Instagram account, and there'll be a link to that in the description as well. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video, whether it's Transformers related or another video on my channel. See ya.